The group text came through 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Big news! My boss, David Roberts, CEO of Tech Corp, is coming to Thanksgiving dinner. This is massive for my career. Everyone needs to be on their absolute best behavior. That includes you, Sarah. I read the message from my younger brother Kevin once, then again. Then I slowly lifted my eyes to the framed photograph on the wall of my office. It showed me shaking hands with David Roberts at the end of last quarter's board meeting, both of us smiling at the camera after finalizing a major vote. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Dr. Whitmore, the Tech Corp board packets just arrived. Thursday's agenda includes the Q4 review and the merger discussion. Thanks, Patricia. I'll go through them tonight. She paused in the doorway, studying my face. You're smiling. Good news? My brother just invited one of my fellow board members to Thanksgiving dinner. He has absolutely no idea we already know each other. Her eyebrows lifted. Oh, that should be interesting. Interesting didn't even begin to describe it. I'm Sarah Whitmore, 41 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my family has treated me like background noise. Kevin is 3 years younger than me. From the moment he was born, he was the golden child, the son, the legacy, the one who mattered. I brought home straight A's. Kevin brought home participation ribbons. Guess who got the celebration? I graduated high school as valedictorian. Kevin barely crossed the stage with a diploma. Dad threw him a backyard party with a rented tent because he worked so hard to get through. I earned a full scholarship to MIT for computer science. Dad's response was, "That's nice, but who is going to marry a woman who's smarter than her husband?" Kevin went to a state school funded entirely by Dad, spent 5 years partying, and graduated with a 2.3 GPA in business. Dad called him a late bloomer and handed him keys to a new car. I went on to complete my master's, then my PhD in artificial intelligence. I published research, won awards. Stanford recruited me to teach. Dad asked when I planned to get a real job. Kevin landed an entry-level sales position at a tech startup. Dad bought champagne. I became a tenured professor at Stanford, published a book on AI ethics that became required reading in computer science programs around the world. I was invited to keynote conferences in Berlin, Tokyo, New York. Dad's only question was whether tenure came with a trophy. Eventually, I began consulting. Tech companies needed AI expertise, and I had it. What started as small $50,000 advisory contracts grew quickly. Within 3 years, I was sitting on the boards of 5 Fortune 500 companies, board seats that paid between $300,000 and $500,000 annually. My Stanford salary and research grants brought in another $800,000. Consulting projects ranged from $50,000 to $200,000 each. Last year, my total income was $4.3 million. My family believed I was a teacher earning $80,000 a year because I had grown tired of correcting them. Kevin had been at Tech Corp for 2 years, sales associate, one of hundreds. He made about $65,000 plus commission, but you would think he ran the entire company the way he talked. At every family gathering, Kevin performed. Stories about closing deals, dropping executive names, explaining cloud infrastructure in vague terms to parents who nodded like he was translating ancient Greek. Dad soaked it up. That's my son, climbing the ladder. Mom would turn to me and say, "Sarah, you should ask Kevin for career advice. He understands business." I held a PhD from MIT and voted on multi-billion-dollar mergers. Kevin cold-called regional businesses trying to upsell software subscriptions, and still, I was expected to take notes. Last Christmas, Kevin proudly announced he was being mentored by senior leadership. "David Roberts himself knows my name," he said. He stopped me in the hallway and asked about my numbers. Mom gushed. Dad beamed. That's what success looks like. Meanwhile, 2 days earlier, I had spent 3 hours across a polished boardroom table from David, discussing an $8 billion acquisition strategy. He had specifically asked for my assessment of the AI integration risks before the board voted, but explaining that would have required my family to actually listen. So I sipped my wine and let Kevin shine. The Thanksgiving announcement didn't stop at one message. "Dad, make sure the house looks good. Mom, we need impressive food, not your usual casserole stuff. Sarah, dress appropriately, nothing weird, and don't go on about your teaching, it's dull." Everyone, David Roberts is personally worth $400 million. Tech Corp is valued at $15 billion. This is the most important dinner of my career. If this goes well, I could be promoted to senior sales associate, maybe account executive. Do not embarrass me. I screenshotted every message and sent it to Jennifer, another Tech Corp board member. Her reply came instantly. Oh my God, does David know he's walking into this? Apparently not. Are you going to tell him? Not yet. I want to observe the experiment. You're wicked. I admire it. I called David's executive assistant, Monica. Monica, did David accept a Thanksgiving invitation from Kevin Whitmore in sales? She sighed. Kevin has been relentless. 3 emails and a follow-up. David finally agreed for 1 hour just to be polite. Kevin Whitmore is my brother. Silence. Then laughter. You're kidding. Very. He has no idea I sit on the board. My family thinks I only teach. This is going to be incredible, David. Does he know? Not yet. I'd like him to discover it naturally. Dr. Whitmore, you're ruthless. The week leading up to Thanksgiving, Kevin intensified his micromanagement. Sarah, I bought you an outfit. It's at Mom's house. Please wear it. You dress like a librarian. The outfit turned out to be a floral dress from Target, size large. I wear a 6. I texted back that I would choose my own clothes. Kevin responded with a lecture about being difficult. I left him on red. The day before Thanksgiving, he called. I need to prep you. Prep me? For meeting David. He's a CEO, highly successful. Don't ask stupid questions. Don't talk about subjects you don't understand. Like technology? I asked. Exactly. Business, corporate strategy, that kind of thing. Just stick to teaching. Kevin, I have a doctorate in computer science. Academic theory isn't the same as real-world success. David built a $15 billion company. You grade papers. I inhaled slowly. Anything else? Don't mention your age. You're 41 and single. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing for whom? For the family. David has a normal life, wife, kids, stability. I stared at the awards lining my office shelves after he hung up. Then I dialed David's personal number, the one reserved for board members. Sarah, what's going on? You're having dinner with Kevin Whitmore tomorrow. Regrettably, yes. Persistent young man. Thought I'd encourage him. Why? Kevin is my brother. A long pause, then laughter. You're serious? Very. He has no idea I sit on your board. You advised us through a $3.2 billion acquisition last quarter. He believes I grade essays. This might be the highlight of my year, David. What would you like to do? Nothing. Just attend. Thanksgiving Day arrived. I reached my parents' house at 2 p.m. wearing a black cashmere sweater and tailored trousers. Kevin frowned immediately. I bought you a dress. I'm wearing this.
Mom hovered nervously. Maybe you could change? No. At 3:45, Kevin assembled everyone. When Mr. Roberts arrives, Dad and I greet him. Mom offers drinks. Sarah, stay in the kitchen. I'm not hiding. I'm asking you to be helpful. I sat calmly on the couch. I'll remain here. The doorbell rang. Kevin straightened his tie and opened it. David Roberts stepped inside, relaxed but unmistakably commanding. His gaze swept the room and then landed on me. He stopped mid-step. Sarah? Hi, David. Kevin looked between us. You know my sister? Know her? David said slowly. Sarah, what are you doing here? It's Thanksgiving. He looked at Kevin, then at me. The realization dawned visibly. Kevin Whitmore is your brother. Unfortunately. Kevin's confidence drained from his face. How do you two know each other? David answered evenly. Sarah has been on Tech Corp's board of directors for 4 years. The silence was deafening. Kevin made a strangled sound. That's impossible. It's entirely possible. Sarah is one of our most valuable board members. Mom interjected weakly. Sarah teaches at Stanford. She does. She's also on 5 corporate boards. Kevin's voice shook. The board? The one that makes decisions? Yes. Compensation committee, technology oversight. I vote on executive pay packages, including his. Dad looked stunned. Since when? Years. I mentioned it repeatedly. David studied my family with the same analytical expression he wore in board meetings. I'm fascinated, he admitted. She told you she served on corporate boards and you dismissed it? Kevin sank into a chair. How much do you make? Last year? About $4.3 million. Mom covered her mouth. David added casually, she earns more than many CEOs. Kevin stared at me like he'd never seen me before. David tilted his head slightly, still observing, evaluating, the way he always did when assessing a room full of information. If I may ask, Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, what did you think Sarah did? Mom spoke softly. We thought she was a professor teaching classes, writing papers. She is. She's also one of the most influential voices in technology. Her research has shaped policy decisions at the federal level. The AI ethics framework she developed is being adopted by companies worldwide. We didn't know, Dad said. Because you didn't want to know, I said. Kevin's work was exciting, important, worth celebrating. Mine was boring academic stuff. Kevin stood up abruptly. I need some air. He walked out to the backyard. David looked at me. Should I go talk to him? That's up to you, as his CEO or as your colleague, whichever role you think fits the situation better. He smiled. I'll be right back. Through the window, I watched David approach Kevin in the backyard. They talked for several minutes, Kevin gesturing, David standing calm, hands in pockets, listening. Inside, the silence was excruciating. Finally, Mom said, Sarah, why didn't you tell us? Really? Tell us? I did tell you. At last year's Christmas, I mentioned I'd been asked to join another board. You said, that's nice, and asked if I was seeing anyone. A board could mean anything. It means exactly what it sounds like, a corporate board of directors. But you assumed it was something small because assuming I was successful didn't fit your narrative. Dad bristled. That's not fair, isn't it? When I got tenure at Stanford, you asked if that meant I could finally afford to buy a house. I already owned a house, a 4-bedroom house in Palo Alto worth $3.2 million, paid in full. Mom blinked. You own a house for 6 years. You've never visited, never asked to see it, never asked about my life beyond. Are you dating anyone? We thought you were struggling, Dad said. Single, working in academia? We thought you needed support. I make more money than both of you combined. I have investments worth $8 million. I drive a Tesla Model S. I take 4 international vacations a year. The only thing I'm struggling with is understanding how my own family knows nothing about my life. The back door opened. David and Kevin came back inside. Kevin looked like he'd been crying. David's expression was unreadable. I think, David said carefully, we should all sit down for dinner as planned and maybe use this as an opportunity for honest conversation. We sat. Mom served turkey and stuffing in near silence. David, the diplomat that CEOs have to be, tried to ease the tension. This looks delicious, Mrs. Whitmore. Thank you for including me. Of course, Mom said quietly. Kevin hadn't looked at me since coming back inside. David turned to me. Sarah, I've been meaning to ask, did you finish that paper on algorithmic bias, the one you were presenting at the MIT conference? Finished it last week, published in the Journal of Machine Learning Research, should be out next month. I'd love to read it, might be relevant for our new hiring platform. I'll send you a copy. Dad cleared his throat. What exactly does Sarah do on your board, Mr. Roberts? Please call me David. And Sarah provides expertise we desperately need. Technology moves fast, especially AI. Sarah helps us understand not just what's technically possible, but what's ethical, sustainable, and strategic. Can you give an example? Mom asked. David glanced at me for permission. I nodded. Last quarter, we were considering acquiring a company that specialized in facial recognition technology, worth about $3.2 billion. Sarah spent 2 weeks analyzing their algorithms, found bias in their training data that would have exposed us to massive liability and reputation damage. Her analysis saved us from a catastrophic acquisition. She did that? Dad asked. She did. The board voted unanimously against the acquisition based on her recommendation. 6 months later, that company got sued for $400 million over the exact issues Sarah identified. Kevin was staring at his plate. Sarah's not just on our board, David continued. She shapes our strategy. When we discuss AI integration, autonomous systems, machine learning applications, we wait for her analysis because she sees things others miss. I didn't know Sarah did any of that, Mom said quietly. Most people don't, I said. Board work is confidential. I can't discuss specific decisions publicly. But when I mentioned being in board meetings, being on committees, consulting for tech companies, that was all real. You just never asked for details. Kevin finally spoke. I told everyone you just graded papers. I know. I told David you worked retail. I know that too. Why didn't you correct me? Would you have believed me if I did? He opened his mouth, closed it. No answer. David cut into his turkey. For what it's worth, Kevin, your sister is one of the most impressive people I work with. She's brilliant, insightful, and completely unpretentious about her expertise. Unlike some people, I said, looking at Kevin. He flinched. Sarah, Mom started, we owe you an apology. For what specifically? For not seeing you. Really? Seeing you? For assuming I was less successful than Kevin, I added, for telling me to be quiet about my work, for dismissing my career while celebrating his entry-level sales job. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant exactly that. Kevin was the son, the important one, the one whose career mattered. I was the daughter who didn't quite fit, too smart, too unmarried, too different from what you wanted. The silence that followed was only broken by David's fork on the plate. Then he said quietly, I think this is a family conversation. I should probably go. Please stay, I said. You're the only person here who's actually valued my expertise. He stayed. After dinner, Kevin asked to talk to me privately. We went to the front porch. November evening, cold enough to see our breath. I'm sorry, he said immediately. For which part? All of it. Telling David you worked retail, coaching you not to speak, assuming you knew nothing about technology. He looked at his hands. Telling the family for years that you were just a teacher, making you feel small. Why did you do it? Because you scared me. I hadn't expected that. Scared you? How? You always smarter, always more accomplished. Straight A's while I struggled for C's. Full ride to MIT while I barely got into state school. PhD while I was barely graduating undergrad. He took a breath. It was easier to tell myself you were just academic, just theoretical, that I was the one in the real world doing real work. My work is real, Kevin. I know that now. I've always known it. I just didn't want to admit it. Why not? Because then I'd have to admit that you succeeded without Dad's help, without family money, without any of the advantages I had. You did it all yourself, and you did it better than I ever could. I leaned against the porch railing. I never wanted to compete with you. I know, but I competed with you anyway, and I lost. It's not a competition. To doubt it is the golden son versus the disappointing daughter, except the disappointing daughter turned out to be more successful than the golden son ever dreamed of being. Kevin, I make $65,000 a year. Sarah, you make $4 million. You own a house worth more than I'll make in 50 years. You sit on boards with CEOs and billionaires. You've accomplished more than anyone in our family by a factor of 100. And you lied to everyone about it. Because I couldn't handle the truth that my sister, the one I'd been told was less important, less valuable, less worthy of attention, was actually the most successful person in our entire family. I didn't respond. Let him sit with that truth. David talked to me in the backyard. Kevin continued, "Ask me why I lied about you." I tried to explain, and he just looked at me and said, "You know what? I see a man so insecure about his own accomplishments that he has to diminish his sisters to feel adequate." David doesn't pull punches. He told me I should be proud of you, that having a sister on his board should have been the first thing I mentioned when I started at TechCorp, that I hid you, diminished you, made you smaller so I could feel bigger. Yes, You did. Can you forgive me? I looked at my brother, saw someone who'd spent his whole life being told he was special for being a son, who'd built his identity on being the important one, and who'd just had that identity shattered by discovering his dismissed sister was the truly accomplished one. I don't know, I said honestly. You didn't just lie once, Kevin. You've spent years making me feel like my work didn't matter, like I was embarrassing for being educated, successful, unmarried. You made me the family joke. I know. And now you're sorry because David exposed the truth. But would you be sorry if he hadn't? If you'd gotten through this dinner without him recognizing me? He was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Probably not. At least you're honest about that. What do I do now? That's up to you. But Kevin, I need you to understand something. I don't need you to be proud of me. I don't need Dad's approval or Mom's recognition. I built a career and a life that fulfills me completely, with or without family validation. You sound like you don't need us at all. I don't. Not anymore. I needed you when I was 18 and alone at MIT, when I was 25 defending my dissertation, when I was 30 navigating a divorce. But you weren't there for any of that because you were too busy being Dad's golden boy. Sarah, I'm not angry. I'm just done. Done pretending. Done making myself smaller. Done letting you feel superior by making me feel inferior. Kevin wiped his eyes. I effed this up. Yes, you did. Can we fix it? I don't know. Can you handle having a sister who's more successful than you? Can Dad? Can Mom? Or will you always need me to be the struggling spinster to make yourselves feel better? He had no answer. We went back inside. David was preparing to leave when we returned. Thank you for dinner, he said to Mom, and for that enlightening conversation. Before you go, Dad said, I have questions. David paused. All right. Is Sarah really as successful as you said, or were you exaggerating to make a point? I started to respond, but David held up a hand. Mr. Whitmore, I don't exaggerate, especially not about professional accomplishments. Sarah sits on 5 Fortune 500 boards. That's prestigious enough that most people can't get on one. She's published research that changed an entire industry. She consults for companies at rates that most executives don't command. She's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, MIT Technology Review, and Forbes. She spoke at the World Economic Forum in Davos last year. Mom made a small sound. Davos? International Conference of World Leaders and Business Executives, I said. They invited me to speak about AI ethics and governance. You never mentioned that, Mom whispered. I did. You asked if I had fun on my trip to Switzerland. I said yes. You changed the subject to Kevin's sales award. Dad turned to Kevin. You won a sales award? Kevin's face reddened. Regional top performer, 3rd quarter. It was just what every sales associate gets if they hit their numbers. David finished. It's nice. Good job. But it's not exactly Davos. The comparison hung in the air. Uncomfortable. Undeniable. Dad sat down heavily. How did we not know any of this? Because you didn't want to know, I said. You wanted me to be the quirky professor, the spinster daughter who never quite measured up. Admitting I was successful would have disrupted the family narrative. What narrative? Mom asked. That Kevin was the successful one, the important one, the one that mattered. If I was successful too, more successful, then what did that say about your priorities, about how you raised us, about which child you actually supported? We supported both of you. No, you supported Kevin with money, attention, validation, connections. I supported myself with loans, scholarships, 3 jobs, and sheer determination. And I succeeded anyway, despite, not because of, this family. David quietly slipped toward the door. I should really go. David, I said, thank you for coming. I'll see you at Tuesday's board meeting. Looking forward to it. And Sarah, you're still my first call on AI strategy, always. He left. The 4 of us, Mom, Dad, Kevin, and me, sat in the living room surrounded by the ruins of our family myths. Tell us, Dad said, finally, Tell us everything, your work, your accomplishments, all of it. Why now? I asked. Why not 7 years ago when I first got a board seat, or 4 years ago when I published my book, or 2 years ago when I spoke at Davos? Because we didn't understand. No, because you didn't care to understand. There's a difference. Mom was crying quietly. We failed you. Yes, you did. Can we fix it? She asked, echoing Kevin's question. I don't know. Can you handle knowing your daughter is more successful than your son? Can you celebrate my accomplishments without diminishing them to make Kevin feel better? Can you value me for who I actually am instead of who you wanted me to be? Kevin spoke up.
I can try. Trying isn't enough. Either you accept reality or you don't, but I'm not going to keep diminishing myself for your comfort. Dad looked defeated. What do you want from us? Nothing. That's the point. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your validation. I built a life without it, a successful, fulfilling life. You're welcome to be part of it, but only if you can handle the truth of who I am. Which is, Mom asked. Dr. Sarah Whitmore, Stanford professor, corporate board member, AI ethics expert, the third speaker, consultant, someone who makes $4 million a year doing work that matters, someone who owns a $3.2 million house, someone who travels the world advising governments and corporations, someone who succeeded despite being told she was less important than her brother. The silence stretched. Finally, Kevin said, I told my coworkers about you. After David left my office today, I told them my sister is on the board, that she's brilliant, that she's one of the most respected AI experts in the world. Why? Because David asked how I introduced you at family events. I said I usually didn't mention you much. He said, if my sister was Sarah Whitmore, she'd be the first thing I talked about. And he was right. What did your coworkers say? They asked why I'd never mentioned you before. I didn't have a good answer. The answer is you were embarrassed of me, of my success that highlighted your mediocrity. He flinched but didn't deny it. Mom stood, walked over to a bookshelf, pulled out a photo album, the family history and pictures. She flipped through, showed us 17 photos of Kevin's graduation, 3 of mine, 12 photos of Kevin's sales awards, none of my academic achievements, 5 photos of Kevin's wedding, none from my wedding. This is who we were, Mom said quietly. Who we've been? Yes, I said. It is. Can we be different? That's up to you. I left my parents' house at 9 p.m., drove home to Palo Alto in silence. My phone buzzed with texts. Kevin, I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it again. Mom, please come to Christmas. We want to do better. Dad, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I didn't respond to any of them, went home, poured wine, sat on my deck overlooking the city lights. Patricia, my assistant, texted, How did it go? Exactly as expected. Complete chaos. My brother's brain nearly exploded. Did the CEO enjoy himself? Immensely. He's now aware that one of his sales associates lied about his sister's career. That should make for interesting performance reviews. You're terrible. I'm honest. There's a difference. Monday morning, David called. I need to ask you something, as your friend, not your CEO. Go ahead. Are you okay? Friday was intense. I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. I'm free. Free from what? From pretending, from making myself smaller, from caring what my family thinks. Kevin sent me an email apologizing for misrepresenting you, asking if it would affect his employment. What did you tell him? That his personal life is separate from his professional performance, but that integrity matters in all contexts. Diplomatic. I'm assume diplomacy is the job. He paused. For what it's worth, watching you handle that situation, calm, professional, completely unshaken, reminded me why you're on my board. You have clarity other people don't. Thank you, David. See you Tuesday. Tuesday's board meeting was normal. Strategic discussions, financial reviews, merger analysis.
At the end, David addressed the board. Before we adjourn, I want to acknowledge Dr. Whitmore. I had Thanksgiving dinner with her family last week. They had no idea she was on this board, or any board, or that she's one of the foremost AI experts in the world. The other board members looked shocked. "How is that possible?" asked Jennifer, the board member who already knew the story. "Because I don't advertise my accomplishments to people who don't value them," I said simply. David smiled. "Which is exactly why you're invaluable. No ego, just excellence." The board applauded. After the meeting, 3 board members approached me. "I had no idea your family didn't know about your work." "Most people don't. I keep my professional and personal lives separate. Still, to have family not recognize your achievements, it's their loss, not mine." And I meant it. Christmas came with another round of texts. "Please come. We want to celebrate you properly this year." I almost declined, almost spent Christmas alone with a good book and expensive wine, but curiosity won. I arrived Christmas Eve, brought nothing, expected nothing. The house was different. Everywhere I looked, there were changes. A framed copy of my book on the mantle, my Forbes 40 Under 40 article printed and displayed, a photo from my Davos speech on the wall. Mom saw me noticing. "We've been researching your work, your accomplishments. We printed articles, bought your book, watched your TED Talk." I've given 3 TED Talks. We watched all 3. Kevin appeared. "I read your AI ethics paper, the one about algorithmic bias. I didn't understand all of it, but what I did understand was brilliant. Thank you." Dad emerged from the kitchen. "Sarah, I'm glad you came." "Me too." Dinner was quiet, polite, fain. Halfway through, Mom said, "We'd like to hear about your work, really hear about it, if you're willing to share." I looked at them, saw people trying, failing, but trying. "What do you want to know?" For the next 2 hours, I talked about boards, research, consulting, the companies I advised, the policies I shaped, the students I mentored. They listened, actually listened, asked real questions. When I mentioned a $200,000 consulting project, Dad didn't flinch. When I explained a board decision that saved a company $400 million, Mom didn't change the subject. When I described speaking to the Senate about AI regulation, Kevin didn't make it about himself. It was strange, uncomfortable. At the end of the evening, Dad said, "I'm proud of you. I should have said that every day for the past 20 years, but I'm saying it now. Thank you." "Can we start over?" Mom asked. "Not forget what happened, but try to be better?" "I don't know. Can you?" "We want to try." I looked at Kevin. "What about you?" "I told everyone at work about you. My sister on the board, my sister the expert, my sister who's changing the world. I've been bragging about you for weeks." "That's a change." "I know. And Sarah, I'm sorry for everything. 4 years of making you small, for being threatened by your success, for lying about who you are." Apology noted. "Not accepted?" he asked quietly. "Not yet, but maybe someday." He nodded, understanding that some bridges take time to rebuild. 6 months after that Thanksgiving, Kevin got promoted at TechCorp, not because of me. I stayed completely out of it. He earned it, hit his numbers, improved his performance, showed initiative. He called to tell me, "I'm senior sales associate now. Small promotion, but it's progress. Congratulations. I told my new team about you, my sister who advises the CEO. They were impressed." "Good." "Sarah, I'm trying. I know I messed up. I know I spent years being a terrible brother, but I'm trying to be better." "I see that. Is that enough?" "It's a start." We had lunch the next week, talked about work, his challenges, my projects. He asked intelligent questions about AI ethics, actually listened to the answers. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Mom and Dad visited my house for the first time, walked through my home office, saw my awards, my library, my life. "This is beautiful," Mom said. "Thank you. I'm sorry we never visited before." "I know. Can we do better?" "You're doing better. Keep going." A year after that Thanksgiving, I was named to Forbes' Most Powerful Women in Tech. My family threw me a party, a real party, with my accomplishments celebrated, my work recognized, my expertise valued. Kevin gave a toast to my sister Sarah, who succeeded despite having a family that didn't see her, who built an empire while we were celebrating my sales awards, who proved that real success doesn't need validation, it creates it. Everyone applauded. Mom cried, Dad beamed. Kevin looked genuinely proud. It wasn't forgiveness, not entirely, but it was acknowledgement, recognition, respect, and sometimes that's enough. I stayed in touch with David Roberts, remained on TechCorp's board for 8 more years, helped guide the company through 3 major acquisitions, 2 CEO transitions, and the AI revolution that transformed the industry. Kevin stayed at TechCorp too, made account executive, then senior account executive, never meteoric but steady, honest, no longer threatened by my success. And every Thanksgiving after that infamous dinner, we told the story. The time David Roberts came to dinner expecting to mentor a sales associate's family and discovered his board member checking coats. The time a CEO exposed a family's willful blindness to their daughter's accomplishments. The time everything changed because someone finally said the truth out loud. I never checked coats again, but I never forgot the lesson either. Success doesn't require validation from people who refuse to see you. It just requires showing up as exactly who you are and letting the truth speak for itself.